people may not be able to imagine how important submarine fiber optic cables are. Currently, there are nearly 500 submarine cables worldwide that carry more than 95% of the world's data traffic. According to the Global Association of Banks and Financial Telecommunications, global submarine cables provide data transmission services to roughly 11,000 financial institutions in various countries, and more than 15 million transactions are conducted on these cables every day, and for the United States, more than $10 trillion in financial transactions are transmitted through submarine cables every day. Would the U.S. economy collapse if Russia cut the submarine fiber optic cables? Or how big would the impact be for the United States? In this day and age, we have access to the internet every day, through which we can keep in touch with the rest of the world and exchange information at any time, and the submarine fiber optic cable is the main artery that ensures the interconnection between major regional networks around the world. In fact, the birth of submarine fiber optic cable is not long. The world's first submarine cable was built in 1988, and as the predecessor of submarine cable, its history can be traced back to more than 100 years ago. In 1844, the inventor of Morse code, the American inventor Morse, sent the first human telegraph from Washington to Baltimore. In the middle of the 19th century, the increasingly developed telegraph service could only be transmitted by lines erected on land and could not cross the transoceanic, limiting the radiation range of the British Empire, thus creating a practical need to connect Britain to the European continent. So in 1850, in fact the first submarine cable in the English Channel driving success, a total length of 46 kilometers, the United Kingdom and the European continent from then on connected. At that time, the function was relatively simple and could only be used to send Morse telegraphic codes. And now there are nearly 500 submarine fiber optic cables around the world, carrying more than 95% of the world's data communications. According to 2018 statistics, the total length of the world's submarine fiber optic cables is 900,000 kilometers, which can circle the Earth 22 times. Some friends may be curious, transoceanic cross-sea communication, why only rely on submarine cable rather than satellite it? There are several considerations here. The first is that seawater can prevent the interference of external light and magnetic waves, the noise ratio is relatively high. Secondly, the cable capacity, the current relative capacity of up to 12.8 T. Finally, the cable design can continue to work for 25 years, while artificial satellites generally in 10 to 15 years will run out of fuel. Of course, due to the very harsh environment under the sea, submarine fiber optic cable is broken, it is also wrapped inside layer after layer. The outer layer of the submarine fiber optic cable is a polymer layer, which is designed to prevent hydrogen gas from reacting with the seawater and reinforced steel cable. Even if the outer layer is really corroded, the inner layer of copper, paraffin, and carbonate resin will prevent harm to the fiber. In addition to seawater corrosion, submarine fiber optic cable has to withstand the huge pressure of the sea floor and various natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and some human factors similar to fishermen's salvage operations. It is worth mentioning that the fiber optic cable in deep water is much thinner than in shallow water, because deep water fiber optic cable today undersea radiation by human interference is small and relatively safe, while shallow sea fiber optic cable is much more dangerous than deep sea. Submarines or ships anchored are likely to destroy the cable, so now ships and submarines have advanced navigation charts, which will mark the location of the submarine fiber optic cable can be bypassed. But it also brings up the question of how easy it would be for both sides to cut it off once the two countries go to war. So if Russia cuts the submarine fiber optic cable, how big is the impact on the United States? As we all know, Wall Street is the financial center of the United States, but also the world's financial center, where financial institutions are transmitting data through the submarine fiber optic cable. If the fiber optic cable is cut, it will undoubtedly be a disaster. The United States is very likely to be in economic stagnation. You know, the U.S. financial transactions a day on $10 trillion, what concept is this? 2020 U.S. annual GDP is about $20.94 trillion. If cut off a day, it is equivalent to half a year for nothing. Previously, during the USSR rivalry, the U.S. was afraid that the Soviet Union would cut the undersea cables, resulting in the disruption of communications between the U.S. military internationally. Russia-Ukraine conflict has passed several months. If the US and Russia fight to a late stage, the destruction of each other undersea fiber optic cable, the US losses will certainly be greater. After all, the US economy depends mainly on finance, while Russia's mainly on energy as well as heavy industry. But such a fish dead net will burn the war to the world, today's international community, through the submarine fiber optic cable to achieve interconnection. Globalization has been an irreversible trend. The US and Russian submarine cables also assume the role of the world's nodes, and every day various countries still rely on these submarine cables to carry out diplomatic work across the ocean. The world's various financial transactions, information systems operation are also dependent on these submarine fiber optic cable, so to speak. The United States is connected to the world through the fiber optic cable. Fiber optic cable is also the lifeline of the United States. If you were the President of the United States, how would you feel about it? Well, that's it for today's video. Feel free to post comments and suggestions in the comments section. See you next time.